The distress beacon had been broadcasting for 17 days. 17 days of silence from the galaxy at large. The Morelian family huddled in the failing environmental chamber of their damaged vessel, adrift in the asteroid field at the edge of the Cygnus sector. Their ship, once a proud merchant vessel carrying rare minerals from the outer colonies, was now little more than a floating coffin. The asteroid collision had ruptured their main drive communications array and left them with dwindling life support. Tack, the family patriarch, checked the oxygen recyclers again. 3 days remaining, perhaps 4 if they continued their strict rationing. His mate, Lyra, sat with their 3 children, all showing the telltale blue discoloration of their skin, the first sign of oxygen deprivation in their species. No responses. Lyra asked, though she already knew the answer. Tech shook his head. The beacon reaches far enough. They simply aren't coming. The Morelians were not surprised. Their species had once been respected traders throughout the Galactic Alliance, but political shifts had left them ostracized. When the new Mineral Rights Treaty was signed 5 years ago, the Morelians voted against it. Their small delegation was overruled, and their race had paid the price ever since. Slowly cut off from trade routes, denied docking rights at major stations, and charged exorbitant fees for basic services, the Morelians have been systematically pushed to the fringes of galactic society, an informal embargo that no species would admit to enforcing, yet all participated in. The Volnar ship passed within range yesterday, Tech said quietly. Their sensors would have detected us. Lyra nodded. The Volnar were known for their advanced sensor arrays. They had surely detected the distress signal but chose to ignore it. The youngest child, Mick, whimpered softly in his mother's arms. At only 8 cycles old, he didn't understand why they couldn't go home, why the air felt so thin, or why his skin had turned such a strange color. "Tell us a story," asked Anima, their middle child, "about Earth." Tech smiled sadly. His children had always loved stories about the strange planet called Earth and its curious inhabitants. Humans were relatively new to interstellar travel, having achieved it only 70 years ago. They were still something of a novelty, not yet fully integrated into the complex political web of the Galactic Alliance. Earth is covered mostly in water, Tech began, his voice growing weaker as he conserved his breath. The humans evolved from creatures that once swam in these vast oceans. Perhaps that's why they're so adaptable. A sudden alert from the communications array interrupted his story. Tech frowned. After so many days of silence, he had stopped expecting any response. He pulled himself to the console, his movements sluggish in the low oxygen environment. It's a reply, he said, disbelief evident in his voice. A ship has diverted course to intercept us. Who? Lyra asked, hope cautiously entering her voice for the first time in days. Tech studied the signal. Humans. It's a human vessel. Within hours, the sleek form of the Asterisk Horizon's Edge Asterisk, a human exploration and rescue vessel, appeared outside their viewports. The Morelian family watched in astonishment as the ship carefully maneuvered alongside their damaged vessel and extended docking clamps. Captain Tom Miller led the first team aboard. Despite the warnings about Morelian biology in the ship's database, he insisted on being first through the airlock. The sight that greeted him was one of desperate survival, a family clinging to life in a chamber growing colder by the hour. "We received your distress call," Miller said simply. "Sorry it took so long to reach you. We were mapping the Kepler sector when we picked up your signal." Tech stared in disbelief. "You came for us? But we are Morelian." Miller looked confused. "Yes, we can see that. Is there a problem?" "The embargo," Lyra began weakly. The human captain's expression darkened. "We don't know anything about an embargo. You needed help, we came. That's how it works where we're from." Within an hour, the Morelian family was transferred to the human vessel. The ship's doctor, Marina, immediately began treatment for their oxygen deprivation and malnutrition. "Your children will be fine," she assured Tech as she administered oxygen therapy to Mick. "Children are remarkably resilient, regardless of species." Later, as the Morelian family rested in the recovery bay, Captain Miller spoke with Tech about their destination. "The nearest Morelian outpost is in the Procyon system," Miller said. "We can have you there in 3 days." "They won't welcome us there," Tech said. Not anymore. No one will. Miller frowned. Then where would you like to go? Tech exchanged glances with Lyra before answering. We have nowhere. The captain was silent for a moment. Earth's colony on Proxima Centauri b is accepting immigrants for their mining operations. Your experience with mineral trading would be valuable there. You would take us to a human colony? Lyra asked incredulously. Miller shrugged. Why not? You need a home. They need skilled workers. Seems simple enough to me. 2 weeks later, as the horizon's edge approached the gleaming spaceport New Hope on Proxima Centauri b, the Morellian family stood at the viewport in wonder. They were the first of their kind to set foot on a human world, the first to be granted asylum by the newest spacefaring race. I don't understand, Tech said to Miller as they prepared for landing. Why would humans help us when everyone else abandoned us? Miller considered this for a moment. Humans were alone for a long time, thinking we were the only intelligent life in the universe. When we finally reached the stars and found others, we made a promise to ourselves, never leave anyone as alone as we once were. Sometimes Tech realized the youngest species had the most to teach the oldest.